Hello everyone, welcome back. I've done a couple of videos recently about the current economic situation, which is pretty much like almost runaway inflation, and how we got into this situation. I explained how our currency is basically debt based currency, and I explained how the banks create money when you put up an asset, usually through the form of a mortgage. In the last video, I also explained that when they create the asset, right? It doesn't matter whether you give the bank a deed to your house or whether you own a gold mine and you give them gold. They take that asset, and in return they give you a receipt. Okay, that receipt is the money, right? That's what money is. It's a note. It's a receipt that you give them the asset. They give you currency slash a receipt that now you can cut up into little pieces and you can trade and you can do business. Now, however, when they create the money, they don't create the interest. Okay, so what happens is you have to pay this back, principal plus interest, and this happens all across the board. So at no given time is there enough money in circulation, okay, for everybody to pay back their principal and interest. Okay, and that's the reason why money has value. People make the mistake of saying that the reason why money has value is because people are willing to accept it. No, that's not the reason why money has value. That's not, the system is a lot more foolproof than that. The reason why money has value is because at any given time, across the entire economy, right? And in this case, it's a global, because the U.S. dollar is a global currency at this point. There's more U.S. dollars outside the United States than inside the United States. So at any given point, people owe more money than exists. Okay, so that's the reason why money has value, because you always owe more money than you actually have. Okay, and you can turn anything into money, right? If I'm the only person that, let's say, has cow manure, right, and you need cow manure, right, and let's say I'm the only source in the world, and you come to me and you say, listen, I need to borrow cow manure. Okay, I say, fine, I'll give you a bag of cow manure, but next week you need to bring me back 2 bags of cow manure, right? Remember, I'm the only source of cow manure. So how are you going to pay me back those 2 bags of cow manure next week? Well, you're going to come back to me and you're going to say, hey, listen, I need to borrow 2 bags of cow manure for you. Well, fine, I'll give you 2 bags of cow manure. Now you got to pay me back 4 bags of cow manure. Okay? What's going to happen the following week? You're going to come back, you're going to want to borrow 8 bags of cow manure, right? So the reason why that cow manure now has value is because you are always going to owe me more cow manure than exists if I'm the only source of, the only possible source of providing you with that cow manure. Okay, so obviously that's a very isolated example, but now you understand why money has value. Okay, that's the reason why money has value. Everybody always owes more money, okay, than money exists to pay back that debt. Debt being the principal plus the interest. Okay, so I was asked a really good question. What about gold and silver as a hedge, right? As an alternative. Okay, and to put this in context, the reason why this came up is because in the last video I was discussing how basically we have a situation of runaway inflation. There's 2 forces at play, right, in an economy. Okay, where money, fiat money, is involved, and pretty much all currencies in the world are fiat money. And the reason is because that's the only thing that can scale to a growing population, to a growing economy. You might say, well, what about gold? How about gold-backed money? First of all, there was never such a thing. Okay, that was just that was just BS. Okay, there was never U.S. money or no money in the world was ever gold-backed. Okay, at least not on a 1-to-1 ratio. And that the value of gold can be manipulated by the people that control the currency or control the gold. Unless you own a gold mine, you've got no say in that, right? So the way it works is we put up money, we bring an asset to the bank, right? Be it a house or gold, right? And the bank gives us a receipt. Okay, that receipt is what we call money, or a note. Okay, they give us a receipt. What we have now is we have the benefit of being able to divide that up, right? So instead of having like one big chunk of gold or one house, right? Where now, let's say if I want to buy something or trade with somebody, I gotta like break up my house or break up this bar of gold or break up the diamonds or whatever. Okay, because they break it up into little pieces in these receipts we call dollars. I'm able to give, break it up and hey, pay the guy for the electrician, pay the plumber, pay the roof guy. So that's the reason why we do it the way we do it. Okay, so that's basically what the money is. It's a receipt of an asset that you've put up, and while the bank has that deed, they own the house. Okay, all right. So anyway, there's two, as I was starting to say, there was two forces at play here that have developed. The problem here is that the government is a big component of this, right? Because the system is basically a Ponzi scheme. The bank is always creating, when they lend out money, they're creating the money, right, electronically. They're creating the principal. They're not creating the interest. Okay, so more people have to keep coming into the system. So that there's money flowing around, right? So what happens is when the next generation comes in to borrow money, the bank creates more money. You do business with them, and that's where you get the interest, right? By doing business with those people, to pay back the interest that you own. Okay, so the current generation depends on the next generation coming in and doing the same thing to create that interest, and the generation after that. So it's a continuous thing. The problem with this system is that we put up real assets to create money. The federal government does not. Okay, what the federal government does is they put up debt. Okay, they call it debt. Basically, they're giving themselves an IOU, and the government is unlimited as to how much money they can borrow. Okay, really creating money. They're unlimited. Other than this legal control they have in place called the debt ceiling. So every time they raise the debt ceiling, they're basically increasing how much money the government can create. Okay, so the two forces here in play is because the government is such a big player in this, right, and everybody's caught on to this. The government has to keep coming in and creating more money because they're such a big component. They're now the ones that are creating the interest for everybody to pay back, right? That's a situation they have put themselves in. It was never intended to be that way, but that's where it is. Okay, so the government has to keep coming in and borrowing money, right, and putting it out there so that the interest, and circulating that new money so that the interest will exist for people to pay back their debt. If they don't do that, the people, the other players in this Ponzi scheme, there's not enough of them, right? To keep this thing going. Okay. So on the one hand, the system now depends on the government to continually come in and create money. But on the other hand, we're all aware, right? All businessmen are aware that this is a Ponzi scheme. So every time the government comes in and creates more money, we're all racing to raise our prices just as fast or faster than the government is creating money. Okay, so the two forces in play is the government must create money on the top side here, so people will be able to pay back their debt and not default. But on the other side, we all know that. So on the bottom side, we're all raising our prices. So as we raise our prices, the money that the government created is not enough, so they now have to create more money. Okay, so the system has reached a critical point where it requires money creation at a faster and faster rate, so people don't default. Okay, so that's the situation we're at. So the solution to this, right? There's only one solution, and this is where we left off in the last video. Is a very deep recession, where people lose their jobs, lose their houses, they get foreclosed on, because what happens when you lose your job, you're willing to accept another job at a much lower pay rate. When the bank forecloses on a house, when they sell it off, they're selling that house at a much lower rate, right? So the value of wages goes down, the value of real estate and other assets goes down, and that's how the dollar gets back its respect. Okay, so the recession is the fix. Okay, that's the cure. The longer you let this get away from you, the harder the cure is. Okay, if they had nipped this in the butt like 2 or 3 years ago, the amount of fix needed would not have been as much. At the point where we are now, okay, a very deep recession, almost depression, is required for the dollar to get back its respect. Okay, so that's where we're picking this up from here. So the question that I was asked, and it's a really good question, is how about gold and silver as a hedge against this? And the person was asking about physical gold and silver. Okay, so before we get into the physical, because that's going to be really the focus of this discussion, right? The first 10 minutes of this video was to get you guys to this point. I hope you're still with me. So the question becomes, how about physical gold and silver? Well, first, let's talk about these gold funds, right, or precious metal funds. Okay, and for you guys that don't know, my background's accounting. I had one client for many years who was a big investor in gold funds, right, and he actually made a lot of money off of this, right. He made a lot of money off this, but one of the things I always told him is that, listen, this is no different than, gambling on any other stock or anything else. You don't actually have possession of that gold, okay? If you don't have like a gold bar with a serial number that's to your name, and even if they did, I mean, remember, you didn't write the contract, you didn't read the fine print, then you're never going to receive that gold, right? In a real shit hit the fan type of situation, unless you have physical possession of that gold, you don't have the gold, okay? All you have is a piece of paper, okay? That's all you have. So that's the first, like it doesn't matter. The guy did make a ton of money off of this investment over I think like almost 2 decades, right? He made, we're talking like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, of course, he went in with like $1 million, right? And it was just his, rather than buying stocks, he bought this, right? That was his retirement account, okay? So he did really good with that. But like I said, it's all you have. I mean, it's just a gamble. That's just a piece of paper that says you have this. In the real shit hit the fan type situation, you're never going to see that gold, okay? So let's talk about physical gold, okay? Physical gold and silver, where you actually go out and you buy coins and you fill up a little chest over here. Okay, so there's two ways we're going to approach this. Okay, the first way is where like you have an economic collapse, but it's basically at the recession, depression, 1929 depression level era, 1930s depression. So that's one level, okay, and then the other level is down here where you have a complete government collapse. Okay, government collapse could be because of a global natural disaster, right? Giant meteor falls, super volcano goes off, that type of thing, where basically total government collapse, okay? An invasion, right, where let's say something similar to what Germany suffered in 1945, where the country was completely overrun by Russians, okay, and Americans on the other side, okay? So a complete invasion, okay, or a civil war, okay? And here's the thing. When we're talking Civil War here, we're not talking about like what happened in the United States in the 1860s. I barely consider that a Civil War because it was almost like the North and South were like almost 2 separate countries. All that was basically almost like one country invading another. A real Civil War, okay? Because here's the thing: in the war, you basically have the soldiers on one side trying to kill the soldiers on the other side. Okay, that's a war. Okay, a civil war. Okay, right? If we're on opposing sides, I'm trying to kill your kids. You're trying to kill my kids. Okay. My family grew up is from Europe. Okay. They lived through the aftermath of World War II. There was basically revolutions all over Europe as the governments collapsed. And to give you guys an example, there was a guy there was a rebel movement in my part of Europe, and the leader of that movement, all right, or basically essentially they were targeting the houses of people that they considered to be on the opposite side, okay, or just not even combatants. Like if you supported the opposite side, they would burn your house down, right? Just for supporting the opposite side. If you were involved in that movement, they would kill your family. And one of the things that this guy was known for is if your wife was pregnant, he would gut your wife, okay, and basically pull out your unborn child, and let you find that, okay. That is a civil war, okay. That's the type of hate that's involved in the civil war. And if you look at like those civil war that happened in Iraq, you're gonna find similar types of situations, right? But that's a civil war. Civil war is where not soldiers fighting soldiers, where you're trying to kill the children of whoever you perceive to be your enemy. Okay, so let's just keep that in perspective. Okay, that's a real civil war. So that's what I would call like a government collapse. Okay, and there's a couple of examples that we can look at here, right? We can look at the fall of Rome in 476. Okay, the 641 fall of Alexandria, 1291 fall of Acre, 1453 fall of Constantinople, 1945 fall of Berlin. Okay, so these are all like different cities that were basically invaded and conquered. And again, the question we're addressing is gold and silver a good, something that would be useful in a situation like that, where you have a complete collapse of government, or you have like a real civil war, right, where people are out to kill you, like kill your family, that type of thing. Okay. So if you were, let's say, in Rome in 476, okay, and you got these barbarian invaders invading the city, okay. Now remember, in the way you motivate people to charge into a city, to go over the walls and risk their lives, okay, is you motivate them to basically go into the city and take whatever they want. Okay, that's how you motivate people to enter a city that's fortified and defended. You basically tell the soldiers that they can enter the city, they can take whatever they want. I think the only exception would be the palace, right, or the rich area. The king or the people running this battle say, hey, that area is off limits, that's just for us. But the rest of the city, right, you go in there, you take whatever you want, whatever loot you find, you take, whatever women and children you want, you take whatever slaves, it's all yours, burn, whatever you want to do, it's yours, man. That's your reward. However you want to do it. Morality doesn't play a game in this. We saw this in Berlin in 1945. The Soviet army was told to go into Berlin, take whatever they want, and specifically they were told to rape the women. Okay, so that is a real invasion. Okay, so if you're being invaded like that, right, or if you've got that type of unrest, do you think it makes a difference if you're standing there with like a pot of gold? Okay, these people are coming in to take whatever they want. Okay, you're not going to barter for your life with anything of any value. Okay, they've already committed to coming in and taking whatever they want. Okay, so the only thing that's going to save your life, all right, or your family, is for you to get out of that area. Okay, so to get out, you need three things. You need transportation. Okay, you need safe passage. You need sanctuary. Okay, you need a way to get out of the city. So here's the thing: when you have this army invading a city or a country, whatever. Okay, remember the most aggressive people, right, are going to go in first. Those are the guys that are like the most aggressive, the most hungry. They're going in, they're going in there to make sure. And the reason why people charge at the beginning of the line is because they want to get in before the other guys behind them, so that they can be the first to take stuff. Okay, so the most aggressive people are going to go in first. Within a couple of days, the city's cleared out. So the guys that didn't get into the city, they're going to start looking around outside the city for people that are trying to get away. They're saying, hey, those guys that were leaving, they're probably leaving with something of value. So they're looking to attack those people. Okay, so you need a way to get out. You need a way to get out fast. There's, like if I'm at the back of the line and I know I'm not going to get into that city, right, I'm probably looking to see, okay, let's sit back a little bit and see who's coming out of the city. Okay, so getting out of the city is going to be difficult, especially as you have more people. You're trying to get your family with you. And here's the thing: a lot of people say, "Hey, you think you're going to get on a horse and you're going to, and get out of there." Well, here's the thing: getting on a horse and getting out of there, where are you going to feed that horse? Okay, it's not like television where you see people get on a horse and like make their way through the desert. You've got to actually carry enough food for both you and the horse. Okay, that's not something that you see on television. You have to pretty much go out with a line of pack animals that are going to be carrying the food for the horse. Unlike what you think, horses don't just live on wild grass that's growing. Okay, they need other things. They need other nutrients. So that's the first. You got to be able to get out with the supplies that you're going to need, right, with your family and with enough supplies so that you can get somewhere. Now, as far as safe passage, okay, so trying to get someplace. So you got to have a plan to get someplace, okay, that to some sanctuary. So as far as that safe passage, on the one hand, you're being pursued from the rear, okay. On the other hand, as you're moving away from the situation, you're going to run into people. You're going to run into people that basically want your horses, right, or your car, whatever you're driving, right, because they want to get away from that situation as well. Okay, they're not interested in the gold that you're carrying. Okay, they're interested in your horses, or if you're driving in the modern day context, your vehicle, your fuel, your food. That's what they want. Okay. So again, in this type of situation, the gold and silver is not going to be useful. You're not going to be able to buy your passage because these people need to get out of there just as badly as you do. Okay, so getting from wherever you're going from to wherever you think you're going to go and be safe is really difficult, because even your own country people are going to be in a desperate situation, and they're trying to take from you whatever you have that's of value. And at least at this point in the game, the least valuable thing is going to be what is the gold or the silver. Okay. Now, when you get to that sanctuary, and that's a big if, right? Because here's the thing: chances are to get to a sanctuary, like in the case of, let's say, Rome, Alexandria, Acre, you got to first travel across land. Then you got to get to a port where the ship is, right? Is the ship still there? All right. Because maybe somebody else showed up before you, and they basically bribed the crew that was holding that ship. So when you get there, the ship is not even there. Okay, that's a possibility. But if the ship is there, okay, now you got, let's say, make your way across the sea, and of course there's other pirates on the sea. Okay, so every step of the way, this is extremely dangerous. And at no point does the gold start to really have any value. Maybe once you get onto the ship, it maybe starts to have some value, but you're still in a situation where wherever you're at, right? Because remember, there's only so many people that you can bring onto a ship. So wherever you're at, wherever you're going, there's always going to be more people than you, right? So you're always going to be outnumbered, okay? So if you get to the sanctuary, right? Be it, let's say, another city that's far away, okay? Now, when you arrive at that sanctuary, now the question becomes, okay, are you really going to be welcomed? Okay, because who's to say that as soon as you touch port over there, those people aren't going to rob you? Okay, take whatever you have, and kill you. So when you arrive at your sanctuary, just because you thought it was a sanctuary before, doesn't mean that it still is a sanctuary. Okay, and again, and even if you arrive with your gold and silver, once you get into the city, again, I mean, unless you have connections with the people in charge of that city, right? Unless you're family with the people running that city, you really can't expect that you're going to be safe. Okay, so that's this. So in this type of a situation, you can see the problems with gold and silver, right? You got much bigger problems, right? Primarily safety concerns. And the gold and silver isn't going to help you, just because people aren't going to value at this immediate point over here. People aren't going to value the gold and silver as much as the transportation to get out of there, okay, or the food that you're carrying. So yeah, they're not just going to want to take your gold and let you leave with your horses. They want your horses, okay. All right, so that's this situation to kind of put things a little bit into perspective with different cities that have fallen over time, right? So let's take a quick look at the situation of Berlin, okay? When Hermann Goering, right, was captured, I mean, he had, I think, suitcases of money and stuff like that. He had stolen art, right? So this was at the point that Hermann Goering was captured, okay, he was a wealthy man, right? He was in possession, right? Even if he didn't have it immediately on him, he did have money and stuff on him, but he also had artwork that he had stolen, let's say that was back at his house. Did that save his life? No. Okay. In fact, he was very no, he actually killed himself. But I think some of the other people that were convicted with him, I mean, they were like pretty brutally killed. I mean, like instead of like hanging them to break their neck, they were like slowly choked on the rope. Okay, so that money didn't help any of these people. Okay, so let's put this aside for a second and let's talk about how gold and silver might help you in a more likely just regular recession depression. Okay, because this is a low probability event here, right? A complete government collapse, although it is a possibility. Okay, it's a very low possibility. Like on any, I don't know, in any given year, this is like what, like a 0.0001%. You know, I mean, it's still a possibility, but it is a low possibility. Okay, now this is an extremely likely possibility. In fact, this is like already, you know, like in the process of happening. It seems to follow like an 8-year pattern, 10-year pattern. So this is most likely where we're at. Okay, so looking at this situation, the thing to understand with this, right? The U.S. dollar, okay, is the most valuable and powerful weapon of the United States. Okay, not the aircraft carrier, not the nuclear bombs. Okay, the U.S. dollar. Okay, and it was intentionally developed that way after World War II, right? And you know, after World War II, the United States very carefully and intentionally got the world hooked on its currency. Okay, and again, the nature of the currency is that you always owe more money than you have. So unless you're willing to default, you're always going to be on the hook for this. Okay, so the U.S. dollar is the most powerful weapon that the government has. They use this to basically control the world. I would argue that the purpose of the warships and the missiles and all that stuff is to protect the dollar. Okay, that's because that's the most powerful weapon. Protecting the currency is the priority, right? Because that's the most valuable asset. And if they need to throw this economy, the entire world, into a deep depression, right? Not just a recession, but a deep depression that will even last 10, 20 years to protect the currency, they will do it, okay? Because this is the most valuable weapon that they have, the most valuable asset that the U.S. government has. It's the thing that they use to control the world. They're not going to give this up. Okay, they're not going to let this thing slide away from them unless they get to this situation here where you have, like, let's say, like a global national disaster, and it's just like beyond their control. All the warships and nuclear missiles can't stop a super volcano from going off. So as long as it's something other than this, the U.S. government will protect its currency at all costs, okay, including at the expense of your own life, if that's what it takes, okay. They will protect their currency because that is the most powerful weapon. So, given this situation here, okay, we can expect that we are going to be going into a deep recession, depression, because the U.S. government needs to teach us all, including me, a lesson that you don't disrespect the U.S. dollar, okay. So the way they do that is they make you lose your job, make you lose your house. Okay, and that's how you learn to respect the dollar. Okay, that's just how it is, guys. Okay, now, as a hedge against the U.S. dollar, like how can you protect yourself against this type of situation? So this is something I've been thinking about for years. Obviously, I'm an accountant. These are the things I think about. So the first thing is have liquid currency, right? If you got liquid currency, whether it's in a bank account or paper money. You know, because remember, the government here wants to protect its money, so they're going to do things, okay, force job losses, force, real estate market crashes. So what's going to happen is the value of the dollar is going to go up, okay? So if you've got dollars, right, like right now, like if you've got dollars, a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll be able to buy real estate at a much cheaper price, okay? Now, aside from this, what's the next best investment? Basically business, right? If you want to have a means to generate more money, okay? And here's the thing: if you got a pot of gold and it's sitting, in the closet somewhere or buried on the ground, that's not generating more money. I mean, until the point where you go to use it, it's like it's not even there, okay? But like business, on the other hand, is something that like I use on a regular day, and every day, right? I'm using my businesses to make money, okay? Tools, okay? So here's the interesting thing. When they've excavated ancient civilizations, right? That it seems, and there's like there's basically indications of an invasion, and the indications are usually burning, right? So they find like a settlement or something, right? Buildings, and there's like what they consider like evidence of burning, right? Which means that they were probably invaded. One of the things that they find when they excavate the area is that people buried tools. Okay, tools in the ancient world were very valuable. So they very rarely find buried gold, but they do find buried tools. So people, even thousands of years ago, were aware that the valuable things are not, it's not so much the currency, but the means to create currency, right? The means to create wealth. Okay, so like in my case, right, one of the things that I did over the last year, seeing this thing coming, right, is I bought another tractor, right? I bought another tractor. I bought a tractor knowing that, hey, I can use this to make more money, right? It's a tractor with front loader. I can do excavating work, landscaping work, stuff like that. So you got a tractor, you got a trailer, way to move it around. Got a truck to pull it. Okay, so one, that's kind of like my backup plan, right? I mean, not that I really need a backup plan at this point in my life. I'm 50 years old, but that's, if you were to ask me, what can you do to kind of like recession proof yourselves? Invest in the business, right? Invest in tools, invest in ways to generate money, right? Not the gold, not the silver, because that's just going to sit, in a box somewhere. You're not going to be able to use it to grow off of, right? Invest in the business, however that is, tools, or, I don't know, whatever your line of work is, or even better, expand beyond just your one line of work, diversify your skills a little bit. Okay. That is probably the best way to recession proof yourselves. Okay, invest in your ability to work for yourself and to generate money on your own. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And thank you very much to the person that asked this question. It really brought about a lot of interesting things that I kind of had in the back of my mind for, I don't know, many decades now. And it gave me it basically brought it from the back of my mind to the front of my mind, and allowed me to share it with you guys. So we'll talk again soon.